The Fan.
Has to put it up for the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Gasol now, the single covered by Landry. Ariza drop down. Kobe! Oh! Up high! Down hard! Kobe Bryant!
6 seconds to go off the clock by not being close to a man.
They'd love to get it into Nash's hands, and they do. Ball knocked away, stolen by Parker. Here comes George to Kobe Bryant. Bryant inside. It's good. It's good. Tie game.
This would be 18 for 20 from the line and an 81-point game. 55 in the second half. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed the second greatest scoring performance in NBA history.
By the way, Sam Mitchell joins at 5:30, and he was the coach. Toronto Raptors, the night Kobe went for 81. He's got a lot to say about that, actually. Mitch Lawrence is with us on the Whiting Clinic LASIK and Cataract Hotline right now. And I want to go, I appreciate the time as always. I know on a hellaciously busy day for you, I'm sure as well. I want to go back to the beginning, because I touched on this with Tibbs, but he didn't really have the answer for me, and maybe you do. Because it's easy. You listen to those highlights, and we know about all the records and all the All-Pro appearances and the titles, and now it's easy to say, well, we all saw it. We knew he was going to be magical. But he was picked 13th. And, of course, there's a lot of theories on what kind of conspiracy was involved there. Jerry West behind the scenes, Kobe's family maybe aren't telling people, don't even think of taking him higher. This is ordained, whatever. But what do you remember? What can you tell us about the feeling around the league about Kobe at that point, and how it ended up going as well as it did for Jerry West and the Lakers that night?
Hey, Dan. Yeah, I remember, and I did a little research the last few days, at least today and yesterday, rather. And Marty Blake, who was the head of scouting back then, basically, was like, well, you know what? Who says he's ready? Who says he's going to be impactful? He basically threw a lot of cold water on it, on Kobe, coming in and being ready. The famous story, the Lakers did not have, I believe the Lakers did not have a first round pick, and they had Kobe in for what turned out to be this landmark, tryout. Mm-hmm. And I think, Jerry West has talked about it, where he and Mitch Kupchak, who was his right-hand man running the Lakers, and other people from the front office, went out to see this private workout where Kobe is taking on, I believe he was going against Michael Cooper, and it was supposed to last like 40 minutes or so. And the word was, and Jerry West has talked about this since, the thing goes is like it's 15, 20 minutes in, and Jerry West stands up and he says, well, I've seen enough, I'm out of here. And like, what's the problem? And he said, no. He said, this guy is better than anybody we have on our roster right now. I need to go back to the office and get on the phone because I got to find a way to get a pick so that we can take him. And he later said, when somebody said, well, that's the greatest workout you ever saw, I said, no, it's the greatest workout by a teenager I ever saw, because Kobe was 17
sure,
now.
Right.
The Nets apparently went out. The Nets also had him in similarly, and he blew away some of their players, because then you could have, I guess, your guys on your roster. Back then it was okay to have them work out, and he dominated the Nets. And I think the Nets at the time really liked him.
Yep.
But, the word was pretty much out that Kobe Bryant was, he wanted to be a Laker. He basically, from like a very early age, had it in his mind. He was going to go, not only just go to Lakers, he was going to be a tremendous player. While everybody, Marty Blake and other people might have doubted him, Kobe Bryant, as a precocious, 17-year-old basketball prodigy, he figured he was going to come in and dominate right away. He had absolutely no fear. Here's a guy who figured, as soon as I get in the league, I am going to be chasing Michael Jordan. I am going to be the guy. He had that type of bravado, that he was so confident in himself that there was no fear factor there, because I'm sure Tom Thibodeau went into this too. I mean, here's a guy, he's in his high school years outside Philly, and he's killing the Sixer players in like summer games.
Yep.
Summer. So while I'm sure some other NBA people basically thought it was, it was this done deal that he was going to go to Lakers. Who knows how he would be? Kobe Bryant was the one who said, you know what, I'm going to be a hell of a player here.
What did Phil Jackson do for Kobe Bryant?
Oh, that's a great question. In terms of, I guess, they had been swept out, and I think I remember this, by Utah. That's a series I covered, and he and Shaq, and then, Phil came in, they went to the Triangle, and, I'm sure, now, I don't know the specifics of what Phil did, because Kobe already had the confidence going and everything, and as Jerry West has said too, Kobe from the very start, he was a guy who every summer came back with another wrinkle added to his game. But I guess, and you'd have to talk to somebody maybe who was there at the time in terms of what Phil really did, because I'm not sure about that. But you got to remember too, Kobe by his second year, he's now an All-Star. That's he comes into New York in the '98 All-Star game, and he's going up against Michael Jordan. And, NBC was doing cartwheels because they've got Michael, who at that time, this is in '98, so he is he's well established as the GOAT already. And you've got Kobe Bryant, who's like 19 years old, coming into this All-Star game. And, Kobe is waving off Karl Malone. Karl Malone wants to come over and get the ball.
I remember that.
Not now, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Not now. So I'm not exactly sure. The funny thing about the Triangle, as Kobe went on, and when he's 23, he's already won 3 titles. They three-peated. Then the joke around the Lakers was, what's the Triangle? Well, the Triangle is first you get the ball to Shaq. If that doesn't work, you get the ball to Kobe, and then if that doesn't work, you get the ball back to Shaq.
It's a great quote. Yeah. Well, my assumption and my recollection is part of what you could say. I wasn't intimating Phil made Kobe by any means, but that for both of them, I think he did probably bring some authority with him where, Kobe could take some shots where you go, oh, wait a minute now. And my guess is that he had enough of a resume, did Phil, that even Kobe had to occasionally defer or at least listen to what Phil had to say.
Yeah, the thing about Kobe as a real young guy was that he was the kind of, he was going to prove to everybody how great he was going to be, and he was going to fire, that All-Star game appearance in '98, the first 11 times he touched the ball, he took 9 shots. That's the type of player he thought he would be. So I'm sure Phil did, bring some law and order to, that combination. Because we all knew, you knew from Shaq, because Shaq had gone to a finals with Orlando before he went to the Lakers, and you knew watching Kobe come up that between those two guys, Phil made this choice. Phil made another great choice in terms of, you could see him. They would go places with Phil Jackson after what he had did with Michael Jordan. And you remember, Michael too. Phil had to kind of put the not harness Michael, but he had to get Michael to accept the fact that the Triangle would be the great offense for him, and that he could trust teammates.
And then it's okay to pass every once in a while.
There you go.
It's interesting because everything changes over a period of time, especially after a tragedy like this. But I can remember many times on this show and even in print, defending Kobe and pushing back more on Shaq, because for a lot of people in the media at the time, Kobe was the whipping boy, and it was almost seeming like people agreed with Shaq that when Shaq would get kind of annoyed with Kobe, and I would kind of say, okay, Kobe could be his own worst enemy, but Kobe's work ethic, unlike Shaq's, couldn't be questioned. I always thought Shaq got off a little too easily for getting away with some stuff because it seemed like the press at that point liked him a little more, because that was an interesting dynamic between the two of them that also had to be worked out for them to be as successful as they ultimately were.
And in that relationship, Kobe was the adult. Shaq was the big kid.
Yes.
And the thing that drove Kobe wanted, and just throughout his career, it happened with Dwight Howard. He wanted you to be as serious and as accountable to your profession, and go at things a certain way like he did. And Shaq was a guy who, Shaq put on weight in the offseason. Shaq didn't train like Kobe.
Yep.
That was a big problem, as we know how that played out. And then eventually the Lakers made the decision that they were going to go they weren't going to pay Shaq anymore. They were going to really go behind Kobe because Shaq was the kind of a guy, he had a different approach. He was not nearly, he wanted to win, but he was not nearly as serious. And so I think the other thing, too, is that Kobe was a little bit more mysterious. Shaq was more outgoing.
Yes, that's true.
I think Shaq might have had that more friends in the locker room, key guys, personality-wise. And I remember, once, Ron Harper was talking about Kobe, and it was kind of like, kind of a mystery to some of his teammates. And Ron Harper's famous quote when they were on the road, like what, who does Kobe hang out with? And Ron Harper was like, who knows, where he goes and who knows what he does. I mean, he's kind of a mystery guy.
Yes.
But Kobe was all about, very serious from the get-go about, I'm here to win, and I'm here to bust my butt, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to work out, outwork people. That wasn't necessarily Shaquille O'Neal back then.
No, it definitely wasn't, and that's where I thought, because Shaq seemed a little bit more accessible and had the one-liners, I think people kind of gave him more the benefit of the doubt than he maybe deserved and gave Kobe too much grief at the time. And that changed, I think, over a period of years, and ultimately it obviously worked out well for both of them, and the marriage, as long as it lasted, at least, as troubled as it might have been at times, was extremely successful. Mitch Lawrence, Sirius Satellite Radio, Mad Dog Radio as well, all over National Basketball Association stories, and of course, this is the big one for sure. It's interesting because we've had now David Stern, not that long ago, and now Kobe. Two people, of course, at two completely different places in their life, one could say, as sad as the news was on David. But these are, I was trying to think back of when one league has had two losses this big, different kinds of losses, but losses this big. I mean, this is pretty unusual territory we're in here, I think.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it that way. I did go to Stern's memorial service, which was held at Radio City Music Hall last week. And this was a deal where, not just Adam Silver spoke, but Pat Riley spoke. Yep. Magic Johnson gave Magic Johnson, without notes, spoke eloquently about, losing his angel, what David Stern meant to him in terms of when he contracted AIDS, and the whole thing about standing by him, and he wanted him to play in the All-Star game, then he wanted him to play on the Dream Team, and, oh, by the way, you've got to recruit Larry and Michael for us. And it was a show. I mean, it was a who's who of basketball people who were there. A lot of teams were represented. Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson, Kareem, I mean, you name it, everyone was there in Stern. And the thing there is that obviously he was 77, he led a more fuller life. Yes. It was tragic what happened. 77 still is not old, but this thing yesterday, when you get the news that, Kobe goes down in a helicopter crash, he's 41. He's got a lot of his life ahead of him. He was doing great things with his daughter's team. He was very successful off the court. I don't know if you heard about this, but apparently, I guess it was Slam Magazine or some publication wanted Kobe and his daughter to appear on the cover, and his thing was, no, you got to have the whole team on the cover with us. Not just going to be me and my daughter. We're going to have everybody. So he was really into it, and the thing that struck me yesterday too is that I can't remember. He's he's a global icon, but you also have these other families that have now been torn apart and destroyed. You've had parents, you've had other children involved. This is just a colossal, horrific thing. I don't even know what compares to it. And going back to Stern, I mean, I know there are people who went into that memorial service thinking, well, David Stern's probably number 2 to Pete Rozelle, and in terms of what he did for his league, and they came out thinking, David Stern might be the equal of Pete Rozelle when it comes to a commissioner who made a huge impact on his sport.
He might very well be. You don't spend, I know, a lot of time in L.A., but you talk to people out there and you have some awareness of it, and you're talking and writing about NBA stuff all the time. So, in terms of Kobe's celebrity and popularity in Los Angeles, even post-career, I mean, what was it? How does it compare? Are we talking about? It's not a competition, but are we talking about literally the most popular Laker of all time? Give people a sense of how big he still was out there.
Well, you and I both were covering the league back when it was Showtime, and it was Riley, and it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I thought Magic was probably the most popular Laker for that time in terms of what he did, in
right.
terms of what he did for his position, in terms of his persona, what happened in the 80s. And I figured at that time, I don't think any of us thought there could be a bigger personality who could hit Lakerland other than Magic Johnson. This guy could not be topped, and you know what? He got topped. Jerry West today says that Kobe Bryant was the greatest Laker, and in terms of how the fans are out there, Kobe Bryant is a revered, everybody loves Magic, but it's like Kobe Bryant has exceeded Magic in terms of the most popular Laker of all time. This guy, there's memorials going on out there now. These people, this hit Laker Nation really hard. And it's not just that, it's just worldwide. In China, and they've got catastrophes with that coronavirus going on, and they say that wherever there's the Kobe memorabilia in China, that's being, swept off the racks, because he's so popular. And yeah, it's amazing that Kobe Bryant probably is the all-time number one most popular Laker. If you're around in the 80s, like I said, it's hard to believe anybody could top Magic. You had Kareem out there, too, but Magic was the guy. For me, anyway, and for you too, I would assume. And now, yeah, Kobe, for what he did, not just, with Shaq, but in terms of being there after Shaq and getting those other two titles. Yeah, the Laker fans, they like LeBron James. They adore, love. Kobe is a beloved figure now.
I think that's very well put. I appreciate the time on a busy day. We'll definitely try to stay in touch. Not that we're going to have to worry about playoffs here, but there's a lot to get to from a pro basketball standpoint, and hopefully more about the basketball next time and not this level of, as you say, it's an unspeakable tragedy on several levels that go beyond just Kobe and his daughter, but as you say, the team, the others involved, it's incalculable is what it is. It's awful.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, thanks,
Thanks, Mitch. Much appreciated. That's Mitch Lawrence joining us on the Whiting Clinic LASIK and Cataract Hotline. Sam Mitchell will join at 5:30. You're not going to want to miss that interview. We had to tape that before the show because he's all over NBA TV this evening, and so the only shot at him was to tape. He was outstanding today. We'll go into a number of other areas for that Sam can speak to, which is coaching against Kobe, playing against Kobe, and I think also articulating why this is such a big deal for not just players of the current generation, but for Sam Mitchell, who is of the older generation as well. We're going to come back, though, with the top 5 at 5. What do we got included?
We'll get you an update as the Vikings name their defensive coordinator, or should I say coordinators. The Wolves and Kings go at it tonight. Gophers and Michigan State update from yesterday, and a Basketball Hall of Fame Class 2020 update that has some extra relevant